Howdy, everyone. I got a question for you. Have you ever been a part of the process to get a bill through a state legislature? Do you know anyone has done it? Do you know that whole process? I know you've probably seen the Schoolhouse Rocks thing on, Just a Bill, but do you really understand and know that process? But first, let me introduce myself. My name is Matt. I am Matt the PT, and I'm coming at you with another video on another topic of something in the physical therapy world. Second of all, let me say thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to tune into the video. Thank you for the likes, the comments, and of course, the subscriptions. Thank you so much for hitting those buttons. It means a whole lot to me. And of course, if you like the video, hit the thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all of this. And of course, most importantly, let me know your opinions, your beliefs, your experiences down in the comments. I find that it's very, very important to have a discussion and a dialogue on it. So I thought I'd come up with this video is something that's kind of based on the past few. Now we're talking here lately about the, advocacy with these, these associations and things like that. And they, I want to get this changed. I want to get that changed. I thought I'd share the experience I had years ago with getting a bill through a state licensure, the state legislature, that would benefit physical therapy. And it was the licensure compact. And if you know me, I am from Mississippi originally, and I served on the board there as the government affairs liaison. And we wanted to enact the licensure compact as that was coming out. It was something that was just starting out. A few states had enacted it, and we said, hey, we want to do this as well. Now, where Mississippi is, it does border several other states, Alabama, Tennessee, and Louisiana, but also you can get over to Arkansas pretty easily from the northern tip of Mississippi. So we said, hey, we want to get this in just so that these therapists can cross the border and work pretty easily. We just want to be ahead of it. We don't want to be behind where we're scrambling to try to get this thing through, and we're missing out on people, one, wanting to move to the state, people who live nearby wanting to come into work. So we wanted to enact it. Now, I understand you're probably saying something about, what about direct access and things like that? We were working on that too. And I'm going to get into a little bit of that as we go along. Now, that is something that we have been working on and trying to get through for many years at that point. And I do believe just a couple years prior, they did get a change in their direct access laws on it. So that'll kind of come into play here in a little bit. So one of the first things that we had to do as the association, we had to really get the definition of what it was. And so, a very quick, rough one is, did you have a home state and you just get the right to practice in a different state? So a state that has that compact in it. And from there, so we had that definition, and then we start looking at what did other states do to get it? So what kind of language did they write up into it? And also, had there been any other professions who had done that in our states or other nearby states? Typically, we based a lot of it off of the nursing compact, licensure compact, because I believe they have one that's nationwide. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But it allows nurses to be able to go to different states. So we said, okay, they've already got this through. We'll base it upon that same thing, and we'll most likely have to use some of the same arguments and discussion points about that to say, like, hey, this allows people to move freely in and out. Also in Mississippi, we do have military bases, and it's really kind of was geared a little bit more toward them. Because, if you're military, you're moving in and out, and it can be a long process to get your license in a place. So to say like, hey, if somebody comes in and they're, part of a military family, they can, whomever can start working a lot sooner on that. So we utilized that. So once we had this idea set up of how we are going to write up this language, we had to get our lobbyist. And we get this lobbyist who is someone who had been working with us for a long time. And a very interesting thing about the lobbyist is that you don't think they do a lot in it, but this person has a really good pulse of what is going on at the Capitol. This guy was, he'd go have coffee with somebody, he'd have lunch, he'd have dinner, he'd go play a round of golf with somebody. But what he's doing that whole time as he's building relationships with people, he's getting people to know, he's getting people to talk. And so what he's doing, he's collecting information, finding out what is the word going around in it. What are people saying? What are people believing? Things like that, because that could be very, very important with bringing this bill up. Now, I had mentioned about the direct access stuff previously. Something that we had to keep in mind is what had been heard previously. So like in the last session, so Mississippi had the sessions were every year for a period of time is when they are in session. And they would look to say, okay, what did they hear a lot of? So if like the previous year they had heard a lot of things about healthcare, they may say, you know what, we heard a ton of stuff on healthcare. We passed a lot of bills and stuff like that. We got to focus on something else. So we don't want to get into anything about healthcare this year because we focused on it so heavily last year. That's something, again, you have this great idea that comes forward. These representatives, they're focused on so many things. Keep in mind, these people they're focused on not only healthcare, but the business going on in the state, the agricultural, the education, the energy, the environment, so many things, and they're trying to do good for as many people as possible. So you have to get this. Okay, what's the thing? Are they going to be willing to hear something about healthcare in it? So we found out, okay, yeah, they are. Also, start finding out, do you have any opposition in it? And that is something that was very important. So getting an idea, because there could be somebody that just doesn't want to hear anything from any other association. This typically may come up if there is an MD who happens to be a representative, and if they have a lot of power, they may not want to give up any of that power. They may look down on anything, PT, nursing, chiro. They're like, nope, I'm just not going to hear anything about it. They're going to pull strings and get anything shut down on it. Also, again, getting an idea, what influences do other associations? So of course, the AMA, the Chiropractic Association, the acupuncturist, kind of getting an idea, what are they telling to people, the representatives? What are they saying? What are the people, what are they going with in it? Because you want to have that, because you want to be able, if you're going to bring this bill up, you want to have a good, straight and easy path on it. You don't want to have to go through a lot of work on it. So you can really find out, saying, hey, it's probably not a good year because we've got this person here. They did a lot, had a lot of bills last year. We got this person here that's just die hard. They're just going to vote against it and they're going to get shut down. So we don't need to do it. Also a thing to keep in mind, can go on. You also have to pay attention to the election cycles. So if you have the people there that you have these relationships with, they may have gotten voted out. That can happen. So you can have all of a sudden a whole bunch of new people in there, and they're getting connections and stuff like that. So you may not want to bring up something that you have. Again, it's like, we got to work on some stuff here with these people before we can really bring up this case or this bill. So we did. We had this person that went through. We found out, hey, you know what? This is a good time to do it. And we had to pick, do we want to go through the Senate or the House on it? Because there can be an easier way of getting it enacted in one or the other. Again, where are you going to have your most opposition? So you don't really want to go through that. So we found okay, the House with Mississippi was going to be our better shot. And we found a representative that said, okay, yeah, you know what? I'll sponsor that. I'll go through that bill. I will do that for y'all. So that was great. We had this person that set it up. Now, this is what happens. It goes to committee first on it. And in the committee, there are all sorts of bills that get brought up there. People have different ideas for this and that, and they all get put into into these committees, and they're discussing it and they're writing up the language on them and things like that. It's important, and if you are involved in any kind of advocacy with representatives, you keep an eye on things here, because you may find something that, again, we're a little careful here, because at this point, another association like the Chiropractor Association or the AMA could come in and say, no, to squash that thing right there. And it could just go away at that little point in the committee, because they're writing it up, they're kind of looking at the language. But then they're starting to discuss it as well. And here's something else that can come out of the committee part is that, again, when you write that up, you have to put in concessions to it. And that is something. So what do I mean by that? You got to put in stuff that you're willing to give up on it. So we want this, but you need to ask for like all this over here, because you may have to give up stuff, because people are going to come in, well, we don't want to do that. We don't want to. So you kind of have to concede a little bit. You just can't ask for like, we just want this, because they may just take it away. You don't have anything to negotiate off of. And I honestly, at this point, cannot remember what we had put in our concessions. And that was something that we actually talked about. What are we willing to put in there that we're willing to take out on stuff? I believe it was, we were wanting to like shorten the length of time for like getting it approved and changing it. It was something else that we wanted in. So that we had put several things in that we had really said we're willing to give those things up on it. If we get them, cool, great. It's going to be awesome. But you know what? We have to be able to willing to give that up, because that sometimes comes up with a negotiation on it. And a big thing that we really, really had to keep in mind was this going to require that we open up our Practice Act? Now, what do I mean by that? The Practice Act, so every state has the right to practice. So it just kind of defines what physical therapy is, who can do what, and it has that all laid out. With some of these laws that in our bills that are coming up to be a law, you may have to open up your Practice Act to change the language in it, because these things may have been written years before there was any thought of these things. But now you see, like, no, this falls within the scope of what we do, so we may have to change it up. Well, you got to open that thing up. And that gets a little scary on it, because if you open up your Practice Act, it can be changed on it. And that's where a good lobbyist person in there can really get an idea to find out, like, look, you got so-and-so over here. He doesn't like the fact that PTs do dry needling, or that PTs have this direct access, or this or whatever. So if you open up your Practice Act to change this language, to add this language in, they could come in and negotiate to have this removed on it. So that's something that really hangs up a lot of states, is that they can see, hey, we're going to have something that we could possibly lose what we have just because there's somebody that has some belief or opinion or something over there. So it's like, look, we're just not going to do it because this person is going to stand in our way. This person could start messing with stuff, and we do not want that. And that is a little scary time. And I would say that for us was a little scary to say, like, could somebody come in and start taking and start changing language and whatnot on it? So luckily at the time, we didn't have any opposition on it. Everyone saw this bill as a good thing, saying, hey, this is going to be beneficial, things like that. So it got through. Now, here comes the big one. Will it be heard on it? So we got the House of Delegates coming up in a few weeks, and it kind of works along the same process. So all the bills, so whenever they're going to meet, these legislatures are going to meet in session, is that all the bills are in an order, and they're going to be heard in this order. And if they're not heard, the bill goes away on it. And they reshuffle these things because somebody wants to make sure that theirs is heard and this one, I don't feel this, maybe we can't hit a decision on this, so we're just going to move it down. So that can be a scary thing with it. Like if your bill is put down in the bottom, it may not get heard because they're going to spend so much time talking about these other things they don't get to that on it. Or maybe somebody slips something else in and they're like, no, we'll put that later on it. So that's a very kind of nerve-wracking thing that can go on. And we had a little worry about that, where we were positioned, but luckily it did get signed. So it did pass, and it went over to the Senate side and they passed it, because usually, like, if one side passes it, the other side passed it. So they did it and it got signed into law. Now, here comes a very interesting thing that people don't really understand. So we had done all this work, got this bill passed and signed and great, and we're celebrating and all that. We think, it's so great. But a couple things that we really had to be aware that really kind of shocked me, really, with it, that I had to be aware of. First off was the representative who was the person who sponsored our bill came to us at the end. It was like, yeah, congratulations, it's great and all this, and brought up like, yeah, I got a fundraiser coming up in a few weeks, and I'm running for re-election and this stuff like that. So they're hinting at we had to make a donation to them on that. So because unfortunately, this is kind of how it goes on it. I would tell this to anybody. These representatives, these legislators, you could come up with the best bill that's going to save all the puppies and kittens, but if it's not going to get them more money for a re-election or get them votes, they really don't care about it. And that's what it did. So we had to make this donation over to them. They didn't say it outright, like I said. They didn't say it outright, but it was hinted, and we're like, look, somebody said, like, look, you got to do that. And next, just because we got that bill passed did not mean that we could go back the next year and to say, hey, we did all this, we want this one through too. Because really, again, all that work and doing all that, those people are going to say, look, we already heard about y'all. We already did all this stuff with y'all. We're not interested right now, which is kind of what came up with the direct access thing. So we had got this change in the direct access. So it was they had changed it up. I don't remember. Like I said, it had been years before I got there. They got it changed up, and they were like, look, it's been about enough time that we can put this in, but you need to be careful with bringing up anything else after that, because they're going to look at you and be like, look, we've already done stuff with you. We need to move on with it. So that was kind of a thing. It's like, oh, okay. So that was a little interesting. But I will say, years later, Mississippi has gone through. So I tell you all that is to kind of let you know that process, because I've had people over the years that say like, oh, well, we need to get this passed and we need to get that passed. But don't understand that is an actual long process, dude. There's a lot of moving parts that go into it. There's, again, everybody thinks that they have the best ideas and the things that's going to help the most people, and they want to get this stuff done. But again, there's a lot of work with it. And an interesting thing, if you ever talk to any kind of representative or anything like that, you would be amazed how many letters, emails, calls that they get. I talked to one at a conference once, and they said, I would come in every day to a literal stack of papers, of letters on my desk every single day. That's the thing. Everybody wants something from them done, and they're trying to make as many decisions as possible to help their state, to help the people there, but they're overwhelmed with it. So all that being said, with getting anything going forward with the physical, for physical therapy to help us for healthcare, it's a lot of work. And that's what we really need to be aware of, that there's many steps to this. It's building relationships with representatives, your legislatures, talking to them, getting them to understand what you do, things like that. It's raising money for that. So it's a lot that goes into it. So if you see people talk about, we need to do this and we need to do that, realize, yes, we do, but it's a whole lot of work on there too. So I just want to share that. That was the experience that I went through. I'm maybe probably leaving out some stuff. It's been, oh my gosh, it's been quite a while since that went through, but I thought I would share with it. Let me know your thoughts and opinions like that. If you like it, hit that thumbs up button. Of course, subscribe to the channel to keep up with it. So until next time, take care of yourself, take care of your patients, and I'll see you then.